How many Mr. Pickles will it get? Let's see if this cabinet has what it takes.
Video Game Vegas.
He's so cute.
Friends, Video Game Vegas. And this is my review of the iiRcade Dragon's Lair First Generation Classic Edition Arcade Cabinet. I base my arcade cabinet reviews on 10 categories, which you'll find detailed in the text below. For each positive in a category, or more positive than negative in a category, I'll score it a Mr. Pickle. The more Mr. Pickles it gets, of course, the better. Based upon the total score, and my overall thoughts, I'll recommend if you should get it, vet it, or in other words, put it through its paces in person before you buy, or forget it. A couple of disclaimers before I get into my review. All my product reviews are based solely upon the item or items I receive. Some may get the same product and have no issues. Some may have more issues than I did. And maybe I get no issues at all, my hope for any product. Or maybe a majority of a specific product performs or presents differently than the one I got. But when it comes down to it, what I get is what I review. I don't acquiesce to excuses like, I must have gotten a bad one, or a good one, or ruminate shipping issues if I had it shipped, though I may note something. But plainly put, I'm an advocate for good quality with a strong emphasis towards quality control. And if a company wants their product seen favorably, then they need to make this a paramount part of their philosophy and put it to action, so what every customer receives is an acceptable, if not preferred exceptional, experience every time. Some may think it unfair not to put a more significant emphasis to the law of averages, and I appreciate that opinion. But my reviews are meant to tell my experience on exactly what I got, good or bad. Second, the footage presented in my videos of arcade cabinets I review or showcase may contain updated parts, decorations, software, or other bits and bobs not included in a standard purchase. Please make sure to check advertised listings or reach out to retailers or companies to confirm complete contents in box. Now let's get to it. Dragon's Lair is a pinnacle moment in my arcade journey. When it first arrived in arcades back in the day, it forever symbolized the grand affair of a new game launch in the arcade. And though other games have launched with fanfare, I've never seen quite the magnificent spectacle as I did before or after Dragon's Lair. Let me take you back to that time. I made my way down to Bumper's Arcade in Cinderella City Mall like I always did, but this time there was a throng of people standing shoulder to shoulder outside. Now the entrance to Bumper's was huge, so I couldn't imagine what was going on. As I moved closer, I could see a television mounted above the crowd showing a cool cartoon. I remember saying out loud, "Is that a Dungeons and Dragons cartoon?" And someone heard me and said, "No, that's the new game." I laughed and said, "No way." I tried to inch closer through the crowd to get a better look, even jumping up and down. I was able to catch quick glimpses of the cabinet, and it was indeed playing that same cartoon. My young mind at the time couldn't fathom this new leap in technology, as the graphics were light years ahead of anything I'd seen before. No game at the time even came close. I remember I had already spent my allowance for the week, but I just had to play this game. I waited outside Bumper's Arcade, in what seemed like forever, for my grandpa to pick me up. He always took me and my brother to the mall on the weekends, and I asked him if I could have some money to play. He said yes and gave me a quarter, and I rushed to stand in line. The line was long, but it seemed to go by pretty fast. I would find out later, this was due to the game's new foreign gameplay style, difficult to figure out in the short moments after pressing the start button, causing quick game overs. I finally got up to the machine and put my quarter in and hit the player 1 button. the game didn't start. An attendant standing beside the machine said it cost 50 cents to play. I thought, what? I quickly scrambled and let him know I needed to get another quarter from my grandpa. He said there are other people waiting to play and I would have to stand in line again. He told me to hit the coin return and I got my quarter back. I quickly ran back to my grandpa and asked for another quarter. He said, once is enough for today. And I let him know I didn't actually get to play because the game cost 50 cents. He said, 50 cents? Having the same shock I did. He let me know we had to get going and said he would bring me back next week to play. I was bummed, but I appreciated that he gave me the money to begin with because 25 cents was a good chunk of change back then, as you could buy a can of pop with that. So for a week, I dreamed of playing this new machine and regaled my friends with tales of this new amazing game. Saturday couldn't come soon enough, and I was back in Bumper's Arcade, 2 quarters in hand, ready to play my first game of Dragon's Lair. There was still a long line to play, but the wait didn't seem as bad as the TV screen mounted above it splashed all sorts of wonderful scenes from people playing. I watched intently, planning my strategy to reach the Dragon's Lair. I got up to the machine and put my quarters in. Ooh, putting both quarters in just to play once hurt, and began my adventures as Dirk the Daring. I whipped the joystick wildly, where I thought I was supposed to go, and rapidly tapped the sword button, all to witness my actions not represented on the screen. It seemed as quickly as I put my quarters in, my game was over. I thought to myself, what a jip. I could have enjoyed an ice-cold Coca-Cola and a bag of chips. As I walked away from the machine, head held down in defeat, thinking, I'll never waste my money on that game again. I kept hearing its wonderful sounds, glancing back at those state-of-the-art graphics, and losing myself to the allure of the lovely Daphne. I just knew I'd have to beat that game. I just needed to figure out how to play. As the weeks went by and the crowds died down, I found myself watching closely to how people played. I learned that the gameplay mechanic was actually quite simple, a matter of memorizing patterns of movement, kind of like a game of Milton Bradley's Simon, but with the pattern staying the same to each particular scene. Well, reversing sometimes in order to suck down more quarters. I then collected Dragon's Lair trading cards and stickers, some explaining how to beat particular stages. And though some may think this cheating, I like to think of it as helpful hints, ones that kick Singe in the newts and assure my audience with Daphne. I wasn't able to collect them all, so some levels I had to figure out on my own. This was all before the internet. But on one glorious day, I was finally able to beat the game. So when it came to visioning my own home arcade, I knew it had to have a Dragon's Lair. It was important for me to have that representation of reliving that grand spectacle of a new game launching in the arcade. I hoped beyond hope that one of the players in the consumer-friendly home arcade market would bring a 3/4 scale size version out. iiRcade and Arcade 1-Up stepped up to the plate. I was amazed by the artwork displayed on iiRcade's offering, trumping the art of the original commercial cabinet in pretty much every way. But Arcade 1-Up chose a physical design that looked more like the original arcade release of Dragon's Lair, replete with its fantastic jutting out marquee. Both offerings gave me the right nostalgic feels for sure, but I ultimately decided I wanted to get Arcade 1-Up's version for the look I remembered back in the day. So why did I end up buying iiRcade's Dragon's Lair cabinet then? 2 main reasons. The first reason had to do with one of iiRcade's business ideals, something that matched one of my coveted customer-centric principles. I heard through the grapevine that if one purchased a game from the iiRcade store, and one owned multiple iiRcade cabinets, then they would be able to download and play that game on any or all of their cabinets without paying for it again. This practice is something I truly appreciate, a very consumer-forward move, and I like to foster such ventures by supporting companies who employ it. I contacted iiRcade's customer support, and they confirmed this functionality. The second reason I decided to buy iiRcade's Dragon's Lair was for its bigger storage capacity, 128 gigabytes of space, double that of my iiRcade Space Ace cabinet. And even though iiRcade's messaging said 64 gigabytes should be enough to hold all one's games, with iiRcade continually getting more hits all the time, I wanted to make sure I had room for the future. Sans these two reasons though, I knew that getting iiRcade's Dragon's Lair wouldn't preclude me from picking up Arcade1Up's still unreleased iteration in the future. I still had a small bit of space to do some rearrangement if needed. The timing to buy an iiRcade couldn't be more perfect as well. It was sale time. I secured $100 off my purchase, which also included free shipping. But would iiRcade's Dragon's Lair be worth the price? Let's find out. The look of the cabinet. Like iiRcade's Space Ace cabinet, their Dragon's Lair is a pure celebration of Don Bluth's work, and it blows me away every time I see it. Nary a blemish to be found either, and I couldn't be happier with the way the cabinet itself looks. Cabinet structure and assembly. Anyone who knows me knows I hate building things. I prefer things pre-built, especially my arcade cabinets, because I just want to jump straight into the action. Having built an iiRcade cabinet before though, I knew I was in for an easy time. Its camlock system is a pure joy, and the structure of the cabinet is quite possibly the best in the biz, so sturdy and well built. And I love that it comes in a two-piece design, which makes it versatile and easier to move, something I personally appreciate. And I love the small stick-on rubber bumpers that go on the edges of the control panel. iiRcade's control panel edges are a bit sharp, unfortunately, so I'm glad they implemented a solution so people won't scratch or cut themselves on the cabinet. I do hope they look into a better design of the control panel someday, as though the bumpers feel great, they can fall off at times as they essentially use adhesive to hold them on. Physical controls. This iiRcade Dragon's Lair is the premium SKU of their classic line and has upgraded sticks, the Sanwa brand. The sticks feel very similar to the ones I got on my Space Ace, which use Sanwa clones, and I find it hard to tell a substantial difference. Maybe the authentic Sanwas are a tad bit smoother, but nothing to quibble about. The buttons are great, and the same ones used on the Space Ace, quality I've grown to love from iiRcade. Unfortunately, like my Space Ace cabinet, Dragon's Lair comes with square gates on the sticks. I don't like them. Most machines I bought that have come with square gates, I've replaced with mostly circle gates, but have used 8-way octagonal gates on occasion as well, with cabinets that include both 4-way and 8-way games, because it makes the 4-way games at least decently playable, while still allowing 8-way games to play as normal. But as with Space Ace, I don't have the option to replace the gates on Dragon's Lair unless I want to void the warranty, which I don't. iiRcade has the best replica arcade cabinet warranty in the biz, or at least that I've seen, and clearly shows they believe in the quality of their product. In any case, if I feel I have to replace anything on a cabinet, it loses a Mr. Pickle in that category, so unfortunately, iiRcade loses one here. The joysticks are playable and get the job done, but 4-way games are awkward at times, and everything feels slightly off from that classic arcade feel. Picture quality. What happened? I paid a premium for a higher price SKU, and what I got was a very substandard monitor that turns absolutely awful the further you move away from it. Now, standing right in front of it, everything looks fair, but as soon as you walk away or look at it from the far sides, it either washes out horribly or becomes a discolored mess. And as you can see from the footage I shot of Dragon's Lair, its key title, the effect is quite abysmal at a short distance away. I guess it was extra shocking to me, given the decent monitor I got on iiRcade's Space Ace cabinet, one of their second generation classic cabs. It should be noted though, there is a brightness option in the settings menu, but no matter how I set it, the discoloration wouldn't go away. Now I guess if one didn't plan on placing this in a room with another arcade machine, it might be fine, but for me, absolutely unacceptable. Dragon's Lair became the eyesore of my arcade, monitor-wise of course, and the disappointment train kept rolling, as just like my Space Ace, installing the plexiglass monitor overlay, even with the most careful maneuvering, a very clumsy process with a questionable sturdiness, got scratches upon install. I wish at the higher price tag comparatively in this market, iiRcade could have included their scratch-resistant glass overlay, which they sell separately, or they could have somehow pre-installed the plexiglass over the monitor in a way that it stayed put and didn't move. Regardless of the overlay issue though, the picture quality is a letdown. Sound. Yeah, along with Space Ace, Dragon's Lair pumps out the best sounds of all my cabinets. Though I have other machines with great sound, iiRcade just takes it to another level. I do have a small nitpick though. Not a big thing, just a small annoyance. I wish the volume wasn't controlled with arcade buttons. They get the job done, but I'm always searching for them, even though they're labeled. Games and gameplay. The games included on this cabinet are the same ones found on my iiRcade Space Ace cabinet, and they include Beach Buggy Racing, Bomb Squad, Diver Boy, Double Dragon, Dragon Master, Dragon's Lair, of course, Fancy World, Gunbird, Maniac Square, Snowboard Championship, and Twin Brats. If you're saying to yourself, I've never heard of most of these games, you're in the same boat as I am. In fact, I only knew 3 out of the 11 games, Dragon's Lair, Double Dragon, and Gunbird, but I did find out after the purchase of my first iiRcade cabinet, Space Ace, that I actually knew a 4th one, Dragon Master. I just had forgotten its name, but had played it before on emulation. So do I feel the packing games make it worth owning this cabinet? Unfortunately, no. But the ability to buy and add more games to its online game store does. This is because of the large lineup of quality games on offer. Yes, you do have to spend additional money to own them, though keep in mind, you do get to try a game for 30 minutes after you buy it, refunding it if you don't like it within that time. But to those who don't have the room to fit a bunch of arcade cabinets in, or are running out of space to add more, or just want a cabinet solution they can keep adding games to, then iiRcade is a fantastic option. I can tell you right now, for me, even if iiRcade never released another game, I would personally be satisfied. I found more than enough to justify my purchase in the games department. If you're interested in finding out my perspective on the free and included games that come with the Dragon's Lair cabinet, please see my iiRcade Space Ace cabinet review. Customer support. Since my interactions with customer support were overall positive on this cabinet, it scores a Mr. Pickle here. Other annoyances beyond what I've already discussed? Yes, pretty much the same things I experienced with my Space Ace machine. I'll briefly touch upon the applicable points here, but if you'd like a deeper dive, it can be found in my review of my iiRcade Space Ace cabinet. Here we go. First, pausing and unpausing games can sometimes produce sound issues. Next, for around a 2 to 3 week period, I had to log into the machine every time I turned it on. Next, some games purchased from the online game store won't automatically download to the cabinet, and you have to jump through hoops to force them to download. And finally, one game I purchased didn't work well, Thunder Zone, but it was eventually fixed. is the cabinet fun? Even with the joystick square gate deficit, I've had so much fun with this cabinet. iiRcade knows how to acquire some of the greatest arcade games of all time, and they work very hard to make the experience great. Value for price. I paid $699 for the cabinet with free shipping, but because of its low quality monitor, which makes displaying it next to my other machines an eyesore, it's just way too overpriced for me. Even with the other upgrades it comes with, better sticks and more storage capacity, the monitor's poor performance kills the deal. In fact, if you plan on putting this next to anything with a decent monitor, I can't, in good conscience, recommend it. Even at a lower price point, even something as low as $300. Now please don't get me wrong, I love the iiRcade platform. It pretty much gets everything else right. But if you're considering an iiRcade, you may want to seek out something like their Space Ace Edition. I say something like, because they no longer make that SKU. A comparable one might be described as their second generation classic design, defined by its light-up power button, with 64 gigabytes of storage and Sanwa clone sticks. To be safe though, since I only know the specific cabinet I have, I would reach out to iiRcade beforehand and also ask them if the one you're thinking about comes with one of their good monitors. Don't be afraid to ask. So adding up the tally of all the categories, how many Mr. Pickles does iiRcade's Dragon's Lair First Generation Classic Edition Arcade Cabinet get? 6 Mr. Pickles out of 10. I have to say, vet it. You really need to see the cabinet's monitor in person in order to make the best decision for you to see if you can live with its low quality performance. I recommend following the fan or trade show circuit to see if iiRcade is attending and see if you can catch one there in person. I really wanted this machine to deliver that pinnacle Dragon's Lair experience I longed for. iiRcade's Dragon's Lair did at least give me some feels, but unfortunately, its train couldn't take me all the way to that stop, the one that recreates that first wonderful time with Dirk and company. For those who would like to see more of what this cabinet looks like, I'm paying it forward and leaving a link below to a video I've enjoyed in the past showcasing it. And I'm also leaving a link to a very important channel I discovered on YouTube, the Cinderella City Project. An amazing person is recreating this no longer with us mall from my youth, lovingly, in a 3D virtual environment. And though Bumpers Arcade isn't currently in his build, hopefully one day he'll be able to acquire the resources to add it in. And I'll also be leaving a link to one of his videos showcasing the location of where Bumpers was, near or at Funtastic Nathan's. Cinderella City was the greatest mall of all time to me, and I can't wait to roam its halls and shops again in VR. One of the largest malls in the world at the time, and I hope you'll take a moment to experience its grandeur. And with that, safe travels everyone. And remember, you always have a right to your opinion, but only I have a right to mine. Until next time, stay wiggly, my friends.